If you don't already know, I worked on the Hill as well, just for a short stint for 2 years before I had my firstborn son. And one thing about Congress is that they break for August recess, but actually, it's not just August. It's more like August and the 2 weeks before and the 2 weeks after, depending on what's going on and if it's an election year.
Yeah, they had an extended 4th of July celebration.
Mm-hmm. The way that I've understood the purpose and the intent for these August recesses was that, similar to the public school season, it was designed to allow for people to go back to their home districts for the harvest season, which is, from what I've always understood about school, is the reason that kids don't start until late August, early September, so that the kids can help on the farm. But then when I went to go to fact check this, it turns out that August recess has only been a thing since 1971. And history would tell us that most Congress members weren't farmers.
By that point.
And yeah, by that point. So I think it is just sort of this like built-in campaigning opportunity. And it's now also not just that month, it's the month of October too.
It's a labor regulation too, right? So they want predictable vacation schedules, and they know they can plan their lives. Well, I hope the world doesn't blow up in August because I'm going on vacation then. People talk a lot about congressional benefits being gold-plated or whatever. I think this is just a version of their gold-plated vacation time.
Do you think that? Do you think $174,000 is enough to, let's assume the spouse isn't working at home, to maintain, because you have to maintain living quarters in DC as well as whatever family you have back in your district.
Is that enough to have a house in DC
I know
and
a lot of
house
people
back home?
Yeah,
No,
it's not. A lot of people complain about that is all.
Yeah, well, we know of members who slept in their offices, and I know that's frowned upon now, and other members who had family nearby they would stay with when they came into DC. That has potentially perverse consequences, so you would only have members who are independently wealthy, and you do see that a lot of people that work in Congress are wealthy and can manage even without the $174,000 salary.
Yeah, but what Congress member is going to come in, because they write the bills that determines their salary. What Congress member is going to come in and be the guy to like commit suicide by giving himself a massive raise?
But that's part of the last amendment, right? This 27th Amendment was so that if they vote themselves a pay raise, it doesn't go into effect until the next Congress. So there will be an election in between, and if he gets reelected, whatever. But they can't benefit themselves directly that way anymore.
Oh, someone already thought of this. Good.
Well, and not only that, it was one of the original amendments that James Madison proposed when they put the Bill of Rights together. But it wasn't included in the original Bill of Rights. It didn't get passed, don't ask me what year, but it was the 27th Amendment, whenever that was.
So time is a blur, but I was trying to, at one point in the last 3 years, determine how much these people actually work in a given year. And so I opened up the calendar. I think this was 2 years ago. So that would have been 2021. Yeah. And they had 101 work days scheduled on their calendar, 365 days a year. And they were working 101 of those. Now, that's in DC. So the way that it's designed, if someone were to be devil's advocate on behalf of the lawmakers, they would work in DC and then they would go back and then they would work in their districts.
Yeah, they call them on the calendar district work periods.
And that's when they schedule like meetings with local council members and
Rotary clubs,
constituents, and whatever other stakeholders there are. Some would call it campaigning. There's another word for it.
It's like franked mail, right?
What?
It's like franked mail.
Oh, yeah. People don't realize this, but there's a franked mail budget for all offices in the House of Representatives. Well, in the Senate too.
And I had never heard that word frank used in that way, so I'm thinking hot dog or some old man.
Yeah.
But what is franking?
Franking is using federal dollars to design and mail like brochures, flyers, informational material from your congressional office in DC to your constituents. And it's like, you have to tread very lightly when you do this. And there's a whole office in the Capitol designed to help you navigate the legal boundaries here, because it's a way to inform your constituents what you're doing, but it cannot fall into the campaigning category. And so you have to be careful about your verbiage and how you design it and which lists you use to send it to which people, because if it's too obviously campaigning, then you violated an ethics rule. And the people who determine the ethics rule are partisan.
Right.
And so if you're a Republican and the majority is Democrat, Democrats will govern this ethics board, the ethics committee. And if they want to, they can screw you by declaring that you violated some boundary with this mailed material. And if you're familiar at all with the campaigning or just even mailing industry, this is very, very expensive. So those flyers that you get in the mailbox and don't even look at and toss them in the trash cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like there are some congressmen who think that this is like a tried and true strategy and will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, like max out their franking budget on these flyers.
I mean, it's part of their budget that they can't use for anything else, and they don't have to raise that money for their campaign.
Yep.
So I'm one of those who believes that we should be spending more on Congress. I know it's easy on our side of things to say, no, cut it all, starve the beast. We need to close all these agencies.
Status.
Yeah, get less government, whatever. And I'm not on board. I'm on board with all that, but if we want the legislators to be making policy, they need the support staff to be able to do that and to have the wherewithal to actually know what they're talking about on all these issues is expensive. And we have not been giving Congress enough resources to have enough expertise to make policy.
There was a, quote, nonpartisan organization or subset of the Congressional Research Office.
CRS, Congressional Research Service?
Yeah. Okay, so there... my memory fails me, but it was either a subset of that group or some, like I said, nonpartisan, but actually partisan organization that went around interviewing members of Congress, asking if they paid their interns and how much. And these people were out to prove that Republicans hated interns, right? But it turns out that Republicans actually, on average, pay their interns more than Democrats do.
Oh.
So the ones who are campaigning for a $15, $20, $30 an hour minimum wage are not paying their interns.
That's hilarious.
On average. Of course, there are some Republicans who don't pay their interns at all.
Right.
That, defy the median statistics. But yeah, since working in DC, I am also of the mind that we should be paying their staff more and definitely paying interns, because there is that perverse incentive that otherwise it will just be people who have access to daddy's money and be working in DC, not like, the hardworking, low middle class farm kid and giving them an opportunity.
Well, if you want Congress to be representative of everyone across the nation, it makes sense to make it to where anybody could come and work there.
Yeah.
Within reason, obviously.
I agree.
Because if you get offers to work in the private sector, you can make good money if you have any expertise at all. I'm thinking of an intern who has no skills, but you could go work in a legal office or go work at any business back home and be making decent money. You'd have to be making at least that, if not more, to be able to survive in DC.
Yeah.
To get those skills.
And it really is crazy how common it is for the intern to become the front desk assistant, to become the legislative assistant, to become the legislative director, to become the chief of staff. Like, that happens all the time.
Yeah, I think about that in the context of Chick-fil-A too. You have the people working outside taking your order in the drive-thru a lot, or not a lot, but some of those people stick around and they become managers of those franchises.
And then before you know it, they'll be the diversity and equity director.
Why not?
Which turns out he's been there for like 16 years.
That was,
yeah.
We could talk about that too. I've seen this a lot in the whole debate about media bias. a lot on the right will say, well, it's only on the left. They make stuff up. You can't trust the mainstream media. And that's all true. But I've been a little resentful lately about that kind of thing happening on the right because I don't have the time to go check everything like I used to.
Mm-hmm.
There was a recent example that annoyed me. Oh, but to finish this point, apparently everyone was mad at Chick-fil-A a few weeks ago because they found out they had this diversity, equity, and inclusion vice president. But it turns out he had been there for forever, and that was left out of the outrage takes.
Mm-hmm.
A similar instance, the Blaze had this media event down in Iowa where they interviewed several of the Republican primary candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And Tucker Carlson had an exchange with Mike Pence that went viral talking about Ukraine. And Tucker was saying, well, you're worried about sending tanks to Ukraine when we have crumbling infrastructure here and our cities are full of crime and they're falling apart. And Mike Pence said, that's not my concern. And so in the clips that I saw and the people talking about it, it seemed like Mike Pence was saying, American cities are not my concern because Ukraine was. But he was directly responding to Tucker saying, you are concerned with more with Ukraine than America. And Mike Pence was saying, no, that's not my concern.
Because
right?
I did hear the first part. I didn't hear the second part.
Exactly. So days later, there are
Right.
other people who came out and said, okay, hold on. We can criticize whatever foreign policy take, but that's not what he said.
What is it? A lie can travel across the world before
the truth gets its pants on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was annoyed because I had seen that and it confirmed my priors. So I was like, oh, yeah, get him.
I know. Yeah.
But
right.
No, that's not what he said. I can disagree with him and I'd rather disagree with what he actually said than look like an idiot because I think he said something else.
Mm-hmm. I forget that Mike Pence is running for president.
A lot of people do.
Like, yeah, you just forget that.
I don't understand his theory of winning. I know we mentioned last time, I'm pretty black-pilled on this. I don't know how any of the Republicans plan on winning. But him especially. I don't know who his base is, who...
Well, because like that very milquetoast GOP conservative base is split already, though, among other primary people. So you have Tim Scott. The Tim Scott base and the Mike Pence base seem identical to me.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference would be. Except that some of the people supporting Tim Scott would presumably be some of the people who were never Trump. Like, oh, I would never work with anyone who ever worked with Trump. And so those people might not be voting for Pence.
Okay.
So Tim Scott can be even more pure, not Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But then aren't those people supporting Chris Christie because that's the only reason he's running? I don't know. I don't know what any of these people are thinking.
Chris Christie. I don't. I've seen a lot of rankings with DeSantis first, and then the guy Vivek,
yeah,
as number 2.
And in some national polls, he's polling number 3 now. And it used to be Mike Pence was number 3, and now it's Vivek.
I talked a lot of trash on him in that one episode.
Every time I hear him speak, I'm impressed. I like him a lot. I'm sure there are some policy things I'll disagree with him about, but he seems like a great guy.
Yeah, I think my exact words was that he was a tryhard, which do seem true.
I mean, he's an investment guy who's running for president at 35.
Yeah, not the worst, I guess, personality type to have, you know?
Yeah.
Leading the free world. It would be very cool to have a young dad as the president. I just think your perspective of the world, you see things with so much more optimism and hope, and like he has a living vested stake in making this country a better place for other people because his children have so much life to live within it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And of course it matches our life stage as well, so I'm sure that influences that take, but it's a refreshing contrast to the old haggard man who is like, I just want to revive what was, you know, something in the past, as opposed to there's still a chance to make a brighter future.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because that's something I've been thinking about lately. We are not going back to the past.
Yeah.
The whole point of the past is to learn from what was good and try to make what you have now better.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean building a time machine or just saying, well, it worked then, we're going to try it now. I'm hoping it's a distraction that some people think that that's possible. I'm hoping that's a straw man. But I appreciate what you're saying and what Vivek is saying. We're trying to build something good using the lessons of the past, but we shouldn't advocate going back. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And it comes out in those polls a lot of times. People ask, if you could be born at any time, when would you rather live? And I don't know that I'd want to live any other time than right now, on balance.
There is no better time to be alive. Like, I think
Yeah.
we've talked about this before, but I look at the things around me. I'm drinking out of a hydro flask. Like,
Well, and not even a hydro flask. It's
but
the
an off
ripoff. Yeah.
to a hydro flask that I ordered on Amazon Prime and was at my front door within 2 days. My front door of my house that has air conditioning, and I'm not even that wealthy. And inside that air conditioned house, I have a flat screen TV, which we saw the other day is now available for $200 less than what we purchased that for several years ago, and has even better technology installed. It. I can have a bank account as a woman. I can go get a high earning job as a woman if I wanted to. I can go to the store 2 minutes down the street in my second car and buy basically whatever I want to there. Like,
And
I have indoor plumbing. They make like bralettes. Like, what? There is no better time to be alive, especially as a previously oppressed minority. Like, what? Why do you laugh?
no, it's just funny to put it in that.
I'm
terms.
stemming off of this argument that I've heard before that there's no better time to be a woman.
Okay.
But I think that applies to everybody. Yeah.
No, I've heard that too. I think even Clarence Thomas has said when people talk about going back, he's like, well, wait, what do you mean?
Oh, yeah.
But the point being, even with all the trade-offs, with everything you've already said that make our lives so much better, even though those come with their own problems, it's better to try and think about how to make life better moving forward than trying to say, well, we'll get rid of all of that and go back to medieval Iceland or whatever the ideal is.
At least then we weren't full of microplastics, Jace.
That's right. I don't have polycystic ovaries, but I've heard that's one factor that your class has to deal with. Another thing that I haven't researched at all, but I just made this connection now and we can cut it if it's ridiculous. Vivek is Hindu.
Oh.
And so is Tulsi Gabbard. And they both speak intelligently about religious liberty. And I don't know if that's because they're a religious minority, but they seem to understand it in a way that makes sense and is not as objectionable as the boring, like platitudinous way that most people talk about it. And I think even Vivek has said America has traditionally been a Protestant nation, and he wouldn't try to change that or anything. So that's intriguing, even if I don't know what all of that means.
What is Hinduism?
Yeah, the national religion of India. Oh, it's a polytheistic old world religion.
But is that the Buddha one?
No, that's Buddhism.
Oh.
Buddhism's like Japan. No, it's okay. Well, yeah, but it's okay. I know next to nothing about Hinduism except that that's where yoga comes from.
Oh. Do you want to?
We can.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we saw this video from Michael J. Knowles, who, wait, is he Blaze or is he
Daily Wire?
He's Daily Wire. And he had some interview with some chick. And I've seen this take before, previously by Steven Crowder. This take went viral like 7 years ago, about how yoga is satanic.
And so it just depends on what you mean by satanic. Is it?
I also think it depends on what you mean by yoga.
If you're doing it for exercise and you're not...
That's not what the woman in the interview suggests.
No, I understand, because supposedly the poses that you do are supposed to be opening your mind and opening these portals to these Hindu deities. And so if we understand that in Christian terms of if anything is not God, it might be demonic.
Yeah.
Then it seems like you're putting your body in a pose to summon a demon.
I like yoga. That's the problem.
So maybe it's a pleasure
Maybe,
demon. I don't
yeah.
know.
I'm just, yeah, falling into sin
And I know we're
and
kind of
downward
making light
going.
of it, but I
I mean,
have no idea.
like, as I have gotten older, I do believe in things like that. That world exists. Witchcraft is real. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the
spiritual
Bible,
warfare is a very real thing.
yeah, the Bible wouldn't tell you not to do it if it
Right.
wasn't a real thing.
Yeah. We'll think on that one. Welcome to episode 23 of Free State Podcast. I'm Laura,
And I'm Jace.
and today we will be talking about Jack Ryan and giving you a review. It's not a movie, it's a series.
It's a series. But I was thinking about it. This last season is the final one, and it's only 6 episodes, and they're roughly an hour long. So it's like a really long movie.
Well, I was going to ask tactically, like, what is the difference between these multi-episode installations versus just a movie?
Well, movies generally, once you hit the 3-hour mark, audiences get antsy.
Okay.
So TV gives you a little more time to
Right.
develop a story.
Okay.
And especially now this is season 4, so this would have been 4 really long movies. But as the quality of TV shows improves, you can't really tell. And so you need something to justify going to a movie, right? You need some giant spectacle like John Wick or Mission Impossible or Dune, something larger than life that you're going to want to see as a movie.
The fact that people are producing these series now as opposed to movies is probably a product of streaming services, because the environment from which people view these things at home is no longer in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, your home theater, if you don't have kids, can be pretty incredible. You have an 80-inch TV with surround sound. It's pretty cool.
Typically, people at the end of the day don't have 3 hours, 2 hours to invest in sitting down and watching a whole show. So 45 minutes to an hour makes more sense. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting that it's changing storytelling in such a powerful way.
Mm-hmm. As always, you can get in touch with us at freestatepod@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at anchor.fm/freestate.
And if you send us a voicemail, we can play it on air. We can respond to it. You don't have to give your name. We could keep it anonymous if you wanted to, but it would be really fun if we could have this be more of an interactive platform.
Yeah, I think the truth is easier to find in conversation, and so the more the merrier.
Enjoy. Is Jack Ryan boomer bait?
That's a good question to open this. Who do you think Jack Ryan is for?
I think it's for people who like good old-fashioned good versus evil with like the very pro-America overtones, if that's what you're talking about. But maybe I'm a boomer. We did watch Yellowstone, so.
And liked it.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean it like that. I just mean like the most popular TV shows are still like CSI Las Vegas or NCIS or...
Did you watch any of those?
Fire Department. When I was growing up, yeah.
Just because it was on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I watched what my parents watched, and that's what they watched.
I watched Criminal Minds. That was my thing.
My mom and my brother got into that, and I never watched it with them. I might have been out of the house by then.
It was also on all day.
Okay.
And so, like, if you took a sick day from high school or just skipped your classes in college, it was basically what was available.
Okay.
I guess streaming was a thing when I was in college, so I could stream.
Oof.
Yeah. There's about a 5-year age difference between me and Jace.
I'm trying to remember what we watched in college. I watched Fox News. My roommates hated it. Yeah. So...
You're such a nerd.
No, I know. I remember one of the first... It was right when Netflix came out.
Were you watching, like, Hannity in your dorm room?
No. Not. I couldn't ever watch Hannity.
But you liked Mark Levin.
Oh, yeah. I would listen to his radio show in my dorm room.
Woof. Like while you were taking vodka shots, or?
No, we didn't have that at DBU.
Jason and I also had very different college experiences.
But, no, I would listen to Levin on the radio, then I'd go watch whatever on Fox during the day. Daytime Fox. I wouldn't watch like Bill O'Reilly or whatever. No.
People forget about Bill O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm. Me too. But I remember when Netflix first came out, we binged Dexter on Netflix.
What is that?
It was a show about a serial killer who only killed bad guys. So it was one of the first
Oh,
anti-hero
okay.
shows.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
It makes you feel weird if you watch too much of it, though.
That's how I felt after watching. I watched Sons of Anarchy in college,
Mm.
and it was very dark. Like all parts of that show were very dark. And I kind of walked around with like a dark cloud over me while I was watching it
Yep.
and for a little while afterwards. Yeah, it's kind of like I didn't expect to go here, but when you watch porn, we don't watch porn.
No.
But when one does, you see the world like through a different lens because it's sort of that kind of content like infects your brain.
Sure.
And so you can't see other people normally because you're constantly thinking about the porn that you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the world like filtered through that perspective. It's gross. Anyway, there is porn and things you can stream now on these platforms because it's virtually a free for all, right?
Yeah, I want to say Dexter included, but I don't remember how bad it was. It was an early Showtime show.
But when I was watching Sons of Anarchy, just the way that I would see the world was like, I would think like, oh, maybe something, I don't know, insert violent interaction would happen with this kid, crossing the street or between these two people. It just changed the way that I saw. It was a very compelling show and I loved the plot and I enjoyed watching it, but it was kind of sick now that I have a little bit of hindsight.
And I've never seen it.
You would like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you there are side effects.
Right. But we're here to talk about Jack Ryan, which just wrapped up its final season on Amazon Prime. It's based on a character created by Tom Clancy, who was the OG military thriller writer before the War on Terror.
Okay.
So in the 80s, I want to say, is probably when he was most popular. You had movies like The Hunt for Red October and Patriot Games. You had
Red Dawn?
no, but
That was in the 80s, wasn't it?
yes, but that wasn't a Tom Clancy book. That was adapted into a movie.
Right.
And I was one of those nerds who had all of those books because I knew I was supposed to like them, but I never read them. Rainbow Six has recently or since then been adapted into a popular video game franchise. But Tom Clancy was the guy who would talk to all the guys in the military and come up with these thrillers, and Jack Ryan was one of his most popular characters. This latest Amazon adaptation obviously puts Jack Ryan in the post 9/11 era.
Yeah.
But since I have no experience with the Tom Clancy books, I can just enjoy this Jack Ryan without thinking about the Harrison Ford version of the character or whatever.
Oh, is that who played them in the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
He played him after the 80s, but I think the books started coming out in the 80s.
Hold on. I need to look up a picture just to remind myself. So,
You like Indiana Jones?
there is a very big difference between, wow, this Time magazine photo of him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very big difference between Harrison Ford, and even his name is like very like hard, and John Krasinski.
Yes.
Like, I would say hard and soft would be my comparison there.
Yes. But CIA analyst nerd with a heart of gold who will do anything and sacrifice himself for the country is still noble. It's just a very different kind of hero.
Yeah.
Than this newer version of Jack Ryan.
Did you like it?
Oh, yes.
Did you have a favorite season? I know we're reviewing season 4, but I tried to watch the recaps to remind myself. I thought season 1 was good. Season 2 was not as good.
Yeah, that was my impression. I don't remember season 1.
Yeah.
But it's because we've had kids since then.
It was where it was he was the analyst and then he became like the field agent.
Yeah.
It was like his journey through this transition. And he was looking he was tracking down these financial crimes,
Mm-hmm.
and then he went to, was it Guantanamo? It was a prison. And then it turns out the prisoner was the bad guy, and like there was this whole shootout thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good conspiracy thriller
Yeah.
kind of show. The first one's very set in war on terror
Mm-hmm.
kind of themes. The second season I thought was bad. I didn't like it.
Mm-mm.
But I remember really liking the first season. The second season's talking about a South American coup and the CIA is involved. And anyway, third season is about a rogue general in Russia who wants to restore the glory of the Soviet Union by starting a war with the West. That was really good.
That season, yes, I really liked that one. And it reminded me of a Brad Thor book that I read shortly after, because you turned me on to Brad Thor.
And I haven't read any of them, but I knew my mom liked them.
So maybe I just like Boomer Rate. I don't know. What is, I read the first 3 books. I can't remember.
3 or 4, yeah.
Well, I think I started the 3rd or the 4th and I was like over it. And I did the same thing with Jack Carr's books.
No,
I read the first one.
you watched the first one.
Yeah, and then
which was Chris Pratt.
Right.
And then
Which
you
is very
started
good.
to read the second book and got like 1 chapter in.
You're right. You're right. Okay, you're right.
But we're familiar with the genre is what we're trying to say.
Yeah. It's hard for me to like sit back and relax and enjoy the post 9/11 military hero shows, because we know what really goes on in real life in most of these circumstances, which is abuse of power. So I have a hard time overcoming the cynicism while watching these shows.
It gets in the way of your suspension of disbelief.
Yes.
Okay. And that's fair. And that came out in season 4. So this one has, okay, Jack's gone from lowly financial crimes analyst to now, when the season starts, he's nominated to be deputy director of the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And his new boss is up for nomination as director, and we're working together in season 3. And he's coming in to reform the CIA, get rid of all of the corruption. And it turns out the former director was running off the books black ops, actually helping cartels and bad people, because it's naive to think that the world is just good and bad and it's all shades of gray and you get yours while you can.
Do you do spoiler alerts and reviews? How does...
I mean, it's
What are the rules?
if you plan to watch it, we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
And it's more fun to discover the secrets in real time. So if you don't want to know what happens in season 4,
I'll try not to let something slip. But
no, we're going to talk about
okay.
it. Just if you don't want to know what happens, fast forward.
Okay.
So season 4 is him coming in and trying to stop all of the illegal black ops missions that the former director had going on. And then the people who were running those trying to stop Jack from stopping them.
And one of the main things about his character is that he breaks protocol.
Yeah, so his confirmation was in question because the senators were worried that he didn't obey the chain of command and would follow his gut with what he thought was right. And that worked for him in the past 3 seasons, but those were high profile enough that these senators know his record and they're worried about giving him that much power at the CIA.
And they had it split, those concerns split among stereotypical partisan lines. So the Republicans were the ones who were like skeptical of his missions, though he, they believed he was doing good.
Yeah, they needed a guy who would take orders.
Mm-hmm.
But then the partisan breakdown was strange in season 4 as well, because they said part of the hesitancy of confirming the new director was skepticism about American involvement in the world. But they were trying to shut down illegal black ops missions, so I don't know how the non-interventionist framework applied in this universe.
There was some other critique that we had, because when Wright was being confirmed for CIA director, we had like an
parliamentarian critique.
Yeah, we had an objection to when Wright was being confirmed, because they only took a vote of the committee approved her, but then you were like, wait, this requires approval of.
If the whole Senate has to confirm
Actually,
her, why does this committee get to tell her she's the new director?
Yeah. We're like, yeah. And then I was wondering, because, with Grey's Anatomy, they have a whole staff of like medical advisors, like real life medical professionals who advise the show to see, like, hey, does this look realistic or not? So I was wondering, is the show hiring, congressional experts and even CIA agents to contract with the show to like.
Mm-hmm.
So then is the entire show a psyop to make us like the CIA?
I mean, surely, and I made this joke when we were watching it. If this is accurate, then the only competent government employees work for the CIA,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to reevaluate everything.
Yeah, which is why I asked about spoiler alerts, because the end was very powerful.
Yes.
The very end of the show.
And I can see why it's the end of the show, because I don't know where you go from there.
Well,
He would
they
have
left
to.
a cliffhanger, but you tell what happened at the end with the senator.
So it turns out this last Black Ops mission that he's going to shut down involves organized crime in Myanmar and the Mexican drug cartels, and they're transporting weapons and people and drugs all across the world. And it turns out one of the keys to their drug trafficking network is the senator from Texas who has to personally waive some of the requirements for some of the trucks coming across the Mexico border.
Which, by the way, I think he was supposed to be Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah,
like,
definitely.
Because his face shape was kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
And they made him, he was a Republican. And like, yeah, it was just quite obvious that that's who he was supposed to be. And who doesn't love to make fun of Ted Cruz?
So this fictional Ted Cruz was letting this terrorist organization smuggle in a bomb, like a chemical biological weapon over the southern border. It's unclear whether he knew that was what he was doing, but this organization was paying him a lot to sign these waivers.
Because when Jack Ryan comes to Congress to testify about the missions that he stopped, he took the questioning in another direction and was like, well, Senator, it's taken me a long time. It's taken me a long time to root out the corruption in this government, and I've realized that I'll never have the true power. And then he like holds up this paper. He goes, is this your signature, Senator? And he says, this is a direct authorization to let these car import things, whatever they were called.
The trucks bringing in other trucks to sell.
This is a direct authorization from you, so you were complicit in this crime. And everybody goes, oh, and then...
But mic drop, walk out.
Yeah, the cliffhanger at the end was like all the team is standing on the stairs with the Capitol in the background and their nice pea coats in the wintertime with their scarves. And one of them turns to Jack and is like, he's going to want you to run, right? And he's like, for what? Well, for office. You don't think that's a cliffhanger?
I don't think that was the cliffhanger.
Oh.
His response after that was to hold up his hands like he was taking a camera, and he said, oh, y'all make a good team.
Team photo.
And so one of the other characters was Michael Pena, who was a special forces guy that had been manipulated by the bad guys in the CIA to do these missions where he thought he was doing something good for the country, but it turns out he was just helping establish this drug network.
So he was like a disenfranchised murder for hire good guy?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was trying to get revenge for his special forces guys who had died doing this illegal work that he thought was good but turned out to be evil. And I'm pretty sure that snapshot that Jack took at the end is signaling that they're trying to do a spin-off with Michael Pena's character, maybe do like a Rainbow Six series with him.
Who was your favorite character?
I mean, John Krasinski's Jack Ryan, but Michael Pena's Domingo Chavez was really good too.
Mine was Mike November.
Oh, he was hilarious.
What's his real name?
Michael Kelly.
So I watched something on Twitter from Amazon Prime, and his character actually wasn't supposed to go past season 2.
Oh, okay.
His contract was through season 2, but John Krasinski like lobbied on his behalf and was like, no, everybody loves a good guy, but he's got like a twinge in his eye, like a wild card character. And so they kept him on through the rest of the show.
Yeah, he's really good comic relief. He's, at this point, former CIA. He's kind of a, not murder for hire, but spy for hire, does crazy stuff. And this one, he gets to fly a helicopter and blow up a convoy. It's pretty cool.
It took me a while to forget him as his character in House of Cards.
Yes.
Doug.
Yeah, Stamper or whatever.
Which was a very powerful character. And so then I was thinking about House of Cards, and when we were still in DC, people would often ask me, from home, people would often ask me, well, is it like House of Cards? And the response is, and I'm not the only one who says this, but the scripted response is, DC is 10% House of Cards, 90% Veep. So more incompetence than malice. I would assume this reality also carries over to the CIA and the intelligence community, and that these shows are really only a fraction of the truth of what's going on.
It might be how they see themselves.
Oh, it definitely is how they see themselves. I know a few people that work in the intelligence community and have worked in the intelligence community, and I can tell you that they are not 6'4" hotties.
That's true.
They're similar personality types to the type of men that drive big, jacked up F-350s with the 6-inch lift kits and the like fancy stickers on the back.
Stickers or truck nuts?
I was gonna say truck nuts. We can go there. That's cool.
Okay.
That's not really a thing. I've not seen that in a very long time.
I know.
I think the thin blue line flag is the new truck nuts.
Oh, fair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you're really dedicated, then you also have a red line flag, which is firefighters too.
That's right. All first responders.
Thank you for your service.
I mean, just on an aesthetic level, it's well shot. The plot is engaging. Season 4 is shorter than the others, so maybe it's faster paced. It's harder to keep up with because they don't have as much time to let the story unfold. But the only other thing I wanted to make sure we touched on was his relationship with Kathy. Is that her name?
Oh, yes, Kathy with a C. Right, the WHO girl.
Yes,
that's who
she works for
for
the World Health Organization.
And that is actually one accurate thing about how DC operates, is that is generally how couples are formed in that town, is like interagency romance.
Sure.
But what else did you want to say about?
Well, I was thinking about it in terms of, here's Jack sacrificing himself, and part of what that requires is not having a real relationship. They like each other, but they hardly see each other, and they're both at least in their 40s. There's no way to have a traditional family.
Yeah.
And so then I'm thinking, okay, is that what's required for national security? Do we need people to sacrifice having a family to protect us?
That's a hard question. My mind immediately goes to spec op guys and the ones that I know in particular. And generally, these men are so good at their jobs because of their families.
That's a good
And
point.
while it is obviously horribly tragic if they fall in the line of duty, when they are in the line of duty, they are performing at 115% because the stakes for them are not just the security of their country, it's their family.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But do I think the environment in Washington, D.C. is conducive to having a family? No, and especially those jobs that require you to be of service at all times of day, every day of the week, which is why I think they are designed to be short-term
Okay.
amounts of service, like for an administration or two at a time. Like, I don't think that you're supposed to be there forever.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, he got tortured, had boiling water poured on him, and like the next day he was down on the border with a machine gun ready to crack skulls.
It's in reality a lot less sexy than that. Like, your boss is texting you at 3 a.m. about some Facebook post, but yes.
Point taken.
Yeah, point taken. You were talking about your jobs requiring you to be separate. Do you remember when we were watching the show? And then in the bottom corner there was that little preview for that other movie that's on Amazon Prime.
Citadel.
And it has Priyanka something Jonas in it.
Chopra, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. She's married to, I don't know which Jonas brother, one of them. There was a news story about them a year and a half ago that they were going to have a baby by surrogate because they were, quote, like too busy with their jobs. The schedules of their jobs were too demanding for them to actually conceive naturally, which is so sick. You're not, let's just use layman's term here. You're not together enough to have sex frequently enough to get pregnant?
That's what I thought you meant.
Are
That's
you
weird.
married? No, that's what the article said at the time. And I don't even have to look it up to remind myself because it was so like outrageous.
They're not together enough to have sex, or they're too tired because they're working all the time?
Too pooped to whoop.
Yeah.
I think it was a scheduling conflict.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I've heard that you're supposed to put it on the calendar.
Sex?
Yeah. Especially when you have young kids, because it's so easy to let everything else pile up and then you just don't.
I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, to each their own, but that's not for me.
I'm just saying maybe they were trying that and they couldn't even fit it in.
Anyway, you really wanted off air to talk about the plus sized aspect of Miss Kathy, John Krasinski's girlfriend in the movie.
I just wanted to note that he had a realistic, age-appropriate girlfriend, unlike a lot of Hollywood productions where they would cast a 22-year-old in that role.
That was a good save.
Kathy, in real life, because I looked this up, is a rapper. So
What?
I would have liked to have seen that aspect of her personality.
What?
Yeah. So the actress who plays Kathy is Abby Cornish, also known by her rap name Dusk. Unless this is a troll, this is straight off of IMDb. She's an Australian actress and rapper.
Why are all the Aussies so banging? Also, I thought she was very attractive.
Yeah, she has a very pretty face.
I think I had this thought while watching the show. I think she's one of those women whose bust is so large that it makes her look big. Like she's not a size 2, but when the boobies are big enough, they sort of crowd the surrounding areas. And especially when you're talking about like a headshot in terms of like film or photography, she's going to look heavier than she really is because those just kind of take over the whole frame.
Sure. The best thing I've ever seen her in was Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's a movie about, I think the girl's in a coma or she's in a mental hospital or something, and she's imagining fighting in this fantasy world to try and escape.
Okay.
And
That's
so
cool.
It goes back and forth between this fantasy and then her reality.
Mm-hmm.
She was good in that.
I'm sort of interested in this Dusk rapper now. Hold on. Do you think she's on TikTok?
Probably not. She's 8 years older than me. She's an attractive woman. To compliment John Krasinski's strong performance.
Casting choices. Wait, who directed this? Was it him?
I know he was a producer. I don't know if he directed.
I'm going to follow her. Follow. You can't.
I will. I wasn't thinking about it. Directors. Jan Turner.
Okay. We don't know.
A bunch of different people.
A very 30,000 foot thought I had while thinking about giving this review of this movie was that we love a good versus evil cinema experience. And as I mentioned earlier, though, it's really hard for me to get over the post 9/11 military industrial complex cynicism that is so ingrained and true. The corruption there is true. I think that reality leaves space for like a really compelling vigilante story as opposed to like the institution, a person inside the institution being the hero, like outside the institution being like a vigilante story. I don't know how else to say it.
Are you talking about Michael Peña's character, or who do you mean specifically?
I mean in the industry of filmmaking, storytelling in general, I think now is a good time to have a character outside of these institutions, just an everyday person who does good. Like that one movie that we watched, and he used to be a murder for hire guy. And he was a dad, and he was like, he reignited his old self. He was bored with his everyday life. His marriage wasn't good. They lived in the suburbs. And
Nobody.
nobody.
Yeah.
And then someone broke into his home.
Bob Odenkirk.
And it was like, what is, they say it's good to be dangerous, but control that dangerous side of you. But he like finally lets it go during his middle-aged crisis.
Yeah, that's the Jordan Peterson line. You need to be capable of violence, but obviously not do it unless needed.
I think it would be really cool to see like, I don't know, like a disenfranchised like pirate sort of story, like, just an individual who does good because
You mean Batman? He's not an
uh,
everyday guy, though. He's a billionaire.
yeah, something more like I think we could, it may be time to do a remake of The Patriot.
On film, right?
Well, right, that is the question. But like so many of us who grew up watching that movie now have kids and can better relate to the part of the movie when he was like, I don't want to fight a war. I have children.
I don't have the luxury of principles. I have children.
There it is.
Yeah.
But this tug of war, and he sees the bigger picture and he does it anyways, and he's a hero. And I don't know, I think I would like to watch a movie in a modern setting with a similar storyline or character profile.
Yeah, it's a good thing to think about, and we need more artistic portrayals of it for sure. That was one part of Jack Ryan. So everything post 9/11, working through that cynicism you're talking about, is rejecting that George Bush line that you're either with us or you're against us, you're with the terrorists. Famously, you had that thrown into one of the Star Wars movies at the time. They had only a Sith deals in absolutes, and that was a dig at George Bush because that was all at that time. So in Jack Ryan now, it's, oh, you don't understand how the game is played. Obviously, all of this is corrupt, and you're naive if you think you can ever make anything better. And that goes for Jack Ryan and his boss, the director of the CIA, Elizabeth Wright. At the end, she's confronting this lobbyist who's been the linchpin of all of these activities with the black ops and the drug trade and all of that. And he said, what are you going to do? I'm one person, but there are tons of people like me making all of this work all around the world. Are you going to go arrest us one by one? And she said, yep. And I like that. As maybe that is naive, but what else is she going to do?
Yeah.
You either play their game and then you're corrupt and killing people for no good reason, or you do your best to try and make a difference. That's all you can do. And I thought that was noble. Before we started recording, you were interested in talking about, you mentioned you wanted a pirate movie. We could talk about Letters of Marque and Reprisal.
That's kind of where I was going. I'm glad you tracked that for me. So, because now my impression of the American military is like the Pentagon, if we're just generalizing, are power hungry, incompetent people. And so we go on these missions all around the world and they generally fail. We're spending, $300 million to build a gas station in Afghanistan that never gets built. And the Pentagon loses $1 billion every other year or something like that. And so my impression of them is not good. The troops actually serving in the military are generally good people, especially when you're talking about spec op guys and the guys who are really in it to win it. They're just put in an unfortunate position because they are highly competent and very driven by mission and purpose, but they're led by people who don't share those goals.
Or the people leading have a mission that subverts that instinct they have.
Exactly. And then you have the people who, like Mike November in the show, contract with these agencies, these military defense agencies. And those people have the same skill level as these highly specialized active duty people. But are they good guys? Or are they, because I was thinking Mike November, and I asked you, why doesn't the CIA just contract everyone?
Yeah, and my response was it's hard to establish a chain of command, even though we're talking about whether following orders is good or not in this context.
Letters of Marque and Reprisal. Let me kind of frame it up in a different way. Part of my problem with government, or not part of, nearly the whole issue with government, is that there are a lack of, or there are perverse incentives for quality performance and outcomes. Unlike in the private sector. People talk about this all the time. When you're working for profit, when you're working to maintain your public image, the incentives are there where people are generally protected from malice and incompetence. So why wouldn't we hire private third-party contractors to do all of our military missions? But then I'm thinking about, well, aren't those people the ones who are doing these real life black ops things that have bad means and potentially also bad ends?
So I think this was Ron Paul's idea. Instead, you would put essentially the equivalent of a bounty on Osama's head, and then you would empower these private actors to go and fulfill that contract.
Pirates.
So, well, back in the day, the pirates would be attacking, and Congress or whoever would issue this letter of marque in reprisal to what was called a privateer to go take care of the pirate, and then they could actually take the money or whatever stolen stuff that the pirate had for themselves. And that's in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Like, it's not crazy. That's a power of Congress to issue these letters. So it was a choice we could have made to say, okay, hey, this small group, and it's not just to contract with a private company or whatever. You would just authorize some entity to go and attack some person or group for a specific reason, and that would have limited the scope of what ended up happening, is the theory. But we didn't do that. It came up again recently in the context of Russia, because people thought to legally seize some of the assets of the Russian oligarchs or whatever, they would need these letters of marque to say, oh, your super yacht is, you're like a pirate, so we're going to take your boat from you. I don't think it ended up going anywhere, but that was proposed, to have these letters issued to go seize their assets.
But we did seize.
We did, but
multiple boats.
We didn't use that process to do it.
So, but where are the boats now? That was like a thing that I saw. They're just stored. Like, is someone?
I would assume so.
Are the CIA guys like going out on the weekend?
We spend something like 300 million or billion. It's embarrassing that I don't know, but it's some large number just maintaining empty buildings that the federal government owns.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine the boats are part of that property that is just not used or guarded still. Part of that figure. Would you want to be a privateer? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's very,
It's very sexy. We should have some fiction. We should pitch this to a studio. Like Angel Studios, if you're listening. Sound of Freedom.
First, support this podcast.
Yeah. And then get
send us $100 through Spotify or through Anchor, and then leave us a good review, like, share, subscribe. Yeah. And then let us know if you want property rights to this movie idea that we have.
Yeah. Jim Caviezel. Who's a pirate that we would go after?
Kathy.
Oh, yeah. We send, what's her name?
Female
Abby Cornish.
rapping
Yeah.
pirate.
That's right.
Who's a TikTok star.
She's going to go to Epstein's Island and get all the loot.
Save all the little girls and little boys.
Save all the girls. Get the tapes and bring them back to Congress. Or, well, I guess not Congress because they might be on tape. But hold the people responsible for abusing people around the world. Sound of Freedom Part 2. We've got it.
We were talking about how Mike November, the character, was Doug in House of Cards. And it was kind of hard to get over his character while watching this. Did you watch The Office?
Yeah.
Was it hard for you during the first season to take John Krasinski seriously, not as Jim?
No, because they had that movie 13 Hours first.
Oh.
About Benghazi.
Yeah. Was he in that?
Mm-hmm.
That was so long ago, I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that was him. And so I had already seen him in that action hero role. And I'm trying to remember if the first season of this came out before A Quiet Place. But I saw him in that too. Yeah. So
that's true.
He's had enough post office action hero roles. Kind of like Chris Pratt post Parks and Rec. I've seen him as a superhero now and now as a special operator, and that's convincing too.
He did a very good job
in
that transition. My mind went to Steve Carell, and I thought about how he has made me laugh really, really hard, but also made me cry.
Oh, man,
in
yeah.
other serious roles.
In the morning show,
Mm-hmm.
man, talk about a complicated role.
And The Big Short.
Oh,
He does
yeah,
a
he's
really
in
good
that too.
job in that movie. I think that was one of the first films that was part of that transition out of having a funny role.
Hmm.
So would you recommend Jack Ryan?
Yeah, it's good TV. We were talking about early streaming shows on the premium channels being porny. This one's not. It's just action.
It's funny when you make it an adverb. Or not an adverb, an adjective. Porny.
I mean, that's HBO's calling card. They used to have at least the first 2 episodes of new shows. I remember True Blood, especially, was ridiculous for that before the plot got going of having just naked people all the time.
Mm-hmm. What was that show that we watched that had gay sex in it? Like
There's a
they
lot. Oh, Mr.
showed.
Robot?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was wild.
That was intense.
I would not watch that again.
I'm trying to remember what network that was because I wanted to say FX, and that's the same network as did Sons of Anarchy. So I know they always push that boundary. And it's funny because that was a joke in The Simpsons where they were saying, it happened so slowly, we didn't even notice Fox turning into a 24-hour porn channel.
Sometimes I watch or see like clips shared on social media. I don't watch Fox News, especially not at this time of day. But the show that has all the women on the couch. What is that show?
Outnumbered?
Yes. Yeah, well that's the whole point. They're outnumbered. They're like outflanked by all these beautiful women. And there's like 4 of them on the couch. But they're sitting in these dresses that they wear on Fox, which like you wouldn't want to wear these dresses to church. We'll just put it
Sure.
that way. And they're sitting on the couch and they all have their legs crossed with them. And they're like very shiny legs. So like they had just shaved, just got waxed or whatever, put lotion on for sure. And then the shoes. And sometimes I watch that show and I'm like, if they moved their legs ever so slightly to the right, this would be inappropriate for cable television. And then, oh gosh, back in the day when I was really online, I came across this Facebook group that had tens of thousands of members in it. And it was an old man's club for sharing screen grabs of this show. And
Oh,
like
man.
saying which dresses they liked and which lady was the hottest. That it was gross.
I remember watching, so going back to me watching Fox News in college, Red Eye with Greg Gutfeld, his first show was on at like 3 a.m., but he had the leg chair at the end of the table.
Did he call it that?
Yeah.
I'm glad. You just call it out.
And back
Say what it is.
then, it was Essie Cupp he would often have there. She's on CNN now. But
that was her thing for a while.
Yeah.
Because she would wear like fishnets even, right?
Oh,
yeah.
she leaned right into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, you should watch Jack Ryan as wholesome pro-CIA propaganda. It's not anti-American, which is nice. It's refreshing. They don't force contemporary political debates into it. There are prominent, diverse characters or whatever, and it comes up tangentially, but they don't dwell on it.
I was going to say maybe they scheduled the premiere of this episode to line up with the debates about the NDAA so people wouldn't pay attention to all of the stupid riders that are in the military spending bill.